Hi Chris, how are you?
Good morning, Rod. I'm well. Here we are. What are we now? Episode 161. Ooh, and it's the 22nd.
It is. Not that we were just frantically updating our show notes before we started there, no.
22nd of Feb though, but we are flying through the year.
Yeah, don't remind me really. It's it's bad enough that the years seem to get faster as you get older anyway, but this year seems particularly fast. I think it's all the drama coming out of America, all the news every day. There's some piece of hyper-normalization going on that sort of freaks you out a little bit, so that's my explanation anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's quite a bit going on, and we're going to talk about it in a bit, but we've had some updates from Apple this week, which is good, and obviously, we're starting to get some tech and get into the normal flow of the year now. I think we've got out of the quiet January.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, to be fair to Samsung as well, they obviously started this off. They did their S25 launch earlier. We didn't actually talk about that at all in any great detail. We should probably do. We are planning to talk about phones a little bit later, so I think it might be worth keeping in mind. Apple aren't the only game in town when it comes to phones.
I think that's fair. Should we dive straight into follow-up then?
Well, no, because we haven't talked about the weather.
Yeah, it's a February day. I was hoping for a little bit more warmth by now, because sometimes we get a little bit around now just to perk us up, but no, it's just a dull, damp February day here. How about you?
Not so bad. There's a little bit of cloud around, but there is the chance of some decent sunshine later, I think.
Cool. Yeah, it's meant to be warmer today, which is good because I wanted to get in the garden.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I will never go in the garden for any reason at all if I can help it. Cutting the grass is about the extent of my involvement with the garden, and if there's a sufficiently large root or something that needs lifting, I'll have a go. But I'm not growing stuff. I appreciate people that do. Well done. I like people to grow food and make pretty flowers. Awesome, but that's not for me.
Yeah, I'm more the maintenance man, I think it's fair to say, in our household.
All right, so you're not out there with your green finger, green thumbs, whichever the correct expression is.
It's green fingers, isn't it? No, I'm more rake up all the leaves, sort out any trees that have lost limbs and all that kind of thing.
So what's green sleeves?
That's a song, isn't it, on the piano that you often hear while you're in hold music.
I know what it is. I was just thought there'd be a chance for a funny there, but never mind.
I ruined it. Should we go into follow-up then?
Let's go into follow-up, and our first piece of follow-up is actually a public service announcement on my behalf, and I'm not the only one. If you have purchased any books from Amazon at any point for your Kindle, they're about to take away the ability for you to download them outside of the Kindle experience effectively. So I'm not saying that your Kindle books are going away. If you bought a Kindle book 15 years ago and you've still got a Kindle, you'll always be able to download it and read it, I presume. But they used to allow you to sort of sideload them to older devices. So if you went to a Kobo or something like that, you'd be able to download them from here, do a little bit of jiggery-pokery, and then be able to get them on your Kobo. That is going away on the 26th of February. So it's really important that if you ever want to have the books you bought on another device, get in there and get your books downloaded.
Yeah, I'm aware of this. I've not looked at it, but this is something I think I need to have a look at because I do have quite a few books on my Kindle and I wouldn't mind just to take a backup of them. So it feels like I need to get on and do that. So do you need to download all the books to your Kindle first and then you drag them all over or something? I don't really know how this works.
So that's the next part of this. And I have failed to do this so far. So when we finish podcasting and finished editing, I'm going to look into this again. There's some very nice chap has released a project on GitHub that will bulk download your Amazon ebooks, and there's a condition here. You need to still have an older Kindle attached to your account. I'm thinking this could be a problem for you. I've got a second generation Kindle still live somewhere in the house, so I know this will work for me. But any device bought after 2024 that's attached to your account, if you don't have one newer than that attached to your account, this isn't going to work for you.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I need to go and have a look, don't I?
So have a look. Anyway, this starts off quite well, describing what it is and what you need to do, and you log in and all the rest of it. I have Homebrew installed, so the next bit was easy. I had to install this thing called Bun, which is a framework that runs in the background. I think it's some sort of web framework like NPM. The bit I haven't figured out yet is where you actually put your Amazon user and password and one-time password into sort of the text files and things that this creates as you go along. So I'm still working on that bit, but I've got it downloaded. It throws me authentication error at the moment, but I'm hoping once I figure that bit out that I'll be good to go.
Yeah, okay. I better have a look at this and put some time in my calendar, maybe later today, because it's at the 26th, isn't it? So it's not very long at all.
It's not far away at all. And, Jason Snell actually managed to get this up and running as well using this. Well done, Jason. And downloaded some over 1,000 books, I think there it is, 1,692 items. So if you've had a Kindle for a while, the chances are you've got more than one book.
Yeah. whilst I don't read everything on the Kindle, I know there's quite a few there. For me, it's my device of choice for sitting in the hot tub and reading a book on a nice evening.
But gets back to the root of a thing we talk about a lot of the time, which is I have bought these books. I should have the right to download them and read them on my iPad in a free text editor on whatever one of those BookPama, for example, Android phones that are going to come along at some point. That it's just text at the end of the day, and I'm glad the author hopefully got their money on the one-time purchase that I made. But it's my book, so I feel I should have the right to download it and read it wherever I want.
Agreed. I completely agree with you there. I'm happy to buy it, but sometimes you want to be able to read it on whatever you want. You've got that device lock-in problem, haven't you?
Yeah, and it's very much, it's the Apple ecosystem writ large in a way, although to be fair to Amazon, they're obviously a little bit more open than Apple have been up to this point, because up till now they've allowed you to do it. But the way these things are going, if they decide to pull a Sony and say, all right, all those books you've bought, we're going to demand another 50 pence per book for you in order to keep reading them at some point, which, I haven't read the terms of service that Amazon have with these things, maybe they can do that, then you're going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, no, it's fair, isn't it? It is that thing, you trust the service until they do something like that, and you never know what's going to happen.
And as we've seen with Sony, they can pull it back.
Yeah, that is true. Sony have not got good form as well for digital legacy either. So
they really don't. So this is just your public service announcement. I hope you haven't left it too late to listen to the podcast, or you might have heard this elsewhere. Get on there and sort out your books.
Yeah, I wonder if Amazon's seeing a massive influx of people downloading their books.
I suspect there's quite a few. I mean, nerdy types mostly have got the ability to run this kind of thing. But I think really you should get on.
Yeah. While we're talking about books, should we go on to the next article?
It's almost like we planned it. So another company that's been downloading a lot of books recently, but not legally, is Meta. So we had a story in the last 2 shows ago maybe about Meta training its AI. I think its AI is Llama on downloaded books that were being torrented from company laptops within Meta itself. They're now claiming that it's not illegal without proof of actually the seeding. So I don't think that's going to hang up in court very well, Mark.
You're still downloading content, copyrighted content. You're one of the richest companies in the world. Couldn't they just logged on to Amazon and bought a bunch of books? Like, I just don't understand why this is the route they went down.
But even that's wrong. What they should
true.
be doing is going to the publisher and saying, we want to buy this author's rights that works in order to train our AI, and just keep putting $100 bills on the table until the author says, yes, that's the right way of doing it.
Agreed. You are right again, but just every time Meta do something, it just seems to annoy me a little bit more.
There's going to be a trend in this episode. This could be one of our angrier episodes again, about large American companies throwing their weight around a little bit. And when we come to Apple, and it's been all over the news, the thing we're going to talk about later on, Apple are right and the UK government are wrong, but at the same time, it's another large American tech company throwing its weight around. And this kind of thing, Meta think it's okay to do this because of that usual, better just to do it and seek permission, apologise afterwards.
Ask for forgiveness. That's the line, isn't it? Ask for forgiveness after you've done the thing.
But, we see with moves with the large, the tech bros, for want of a better word, where they're doing this kind of stuff, and I suspect they'll be back to the highest ranks of government as long as they've made the right sort of obeisance to the president at this point. If they paid a bunch of money to him, this isn't going to end up in court. This will just end up with one trade secretary or Trump himself saying something at a press conference and it'll all go away.
Yeah, that's true. That's what's going to happen, isn't it?
It ain't right, and this ain't right. This is stealing, Mark. There's no two ways about it. You've done it from your company products via your company's internet. It's stealing. Yeah,
it is stealing. Can we move on?
Let's move on to something just as happy. And I hope you didn't buy an humane AI pin. We covered it a little bit on the show. This was this little pin that you pin to yourself, and it was an AI assistant. It had a little projector on it. You could hold your hand up in front of it to see some things. It had a camera on it, so you get to take pictures. But the reviews of it was terrible, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think so. This is a company set by a bunch of people from Apple. It was very odd how they introduced it to the world. They were very nonchalant, I think, in one way. But it had some cool tech. But it was like $700, and you really still needed to have a phone. I quite like the concept of this, that it's something without a screen. I don't need to be attached to a screen all day, every day. Brilliant. But for most people, it's a companion device, not a replacement device. I think that was the problem. So they've only sold circa 10,500 of these, which isn't a huge amount. And so I think really since launch, we haven't really heard anything. And now they've been acquired by HP, which is odd to me. HP do seem to gobble up companies and their IP, don't they? I mean, they bought Palm years ago and various other businesses. So it's interesting that HP saw enough in there to warrant the acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, I was mystified by this product from the outset. This is never going to replace your phone. You need to spend $700 on it. You still needed a monthly subscription to keep it going. All the reviews, when you asked it questions, it would get the odd thing right, but the bulk of things wrong. It was obviously built on a fairly early LLM at that point, but of course the promise of these things is the back end can be upgraded continuously and smoothly. And I was kind of with you, this and the other competitor in the room, which was the Rabbit AI, I think is what it was called. The Rabbit at least had a screen on it and made a little bit more sense. It was an interesting looking product, whereas this was heavy, got hot really quickly, and the battery only lasted about 2 hours if you were lucky. So
they had a potential risk of it catching fire too. So it's just been a troubled birth. Been acquired by HP for £116 million.
Yeah, that's probably, in one sense, that doesn't seem like a lot in big companies these days when you've got companies that are worth, suddenly worth billions. How much did Elon Musk pay for Twitter? It didn't have products, it had eyeballs. I've seen a couple of funny things about HP acquiring this, about the screen. When you hold your hand up to the screen, maybe it's going to say out of toner.
I did see that too.
Yeah, I quite like that, it must be said. I mean, this wasn't a great device, but I suspect what HP think they're buying is the intelligence behind bringing it together and being able at least to bring a product to market.
Yeah, and maybe they've seen something in some of the tech there. HP, like I say, do buy weird and wonderful things, but it's just a shame, isn't it? It was a cool idea. It was too expensive, and it was amazing. They thought it was going to be a mass market product.
However, I don't actually believe that it's very useful, to have this in your range of intellectual property, because it's perceived so poorly by the public. It was slammed by every reviewer that ever came across it. You're not going to release the HP Humane, laser printer, are you? It's not going to have a great cachet.
No, but unless there's something in it that we haven't seen, and they're like, well, this is going to revolutionise our laptops or something. We just don't know, I guess, that maybe they've spotted something that made it worth the acquisition, but it's a lot of money.
I mean, one of the worst things about this are the people who have bought one, and are at least trying to get on with it. They've only got about a week left to sort of get out of the device and walk away from it, and all they're going to be able to do with it is charge it back up. That's all the device is going to tell them, is how much charge is going in.
Which for $700 isn't great, but then maybe they actually know that nobody's really using it. Maybe they've sold these 10,000 and most of them are just sat on shelves, so it's actually a non-event, but they haven't given a very long grace period, have they?
No, they really haven't. And I don't know. I feel a bit sad. If you were super into this market, well, I mean, you were duped slightly, thinking this was going to be a useful product anyway. And just pick up your phone. But oh well, good luck HP, I suppose. I don't have a lot of time for HP. I don't think they make great products anymore. I think my disappointment with HP is that they used to be a truly great company. They were one of the sort of founders of Silicon Valley in many ways. They made amazing computers, printers, life sciences equipment. They were a truly great company. And these days, they're just part of that tech slop background, really.
I completely agree. To me, they're a bit like the EA of the games world. They buy stuff, they don't really look after it. They try and fold it in and then milk you for every penny you have. I probably wouldn't rush to buy another HP printer. I have one now. I probably would replace it with something else.
Yeah, we'd all buy the brother that we're told to buy. But the same applies to their laptops. There's a YouTuber called Alex Ziskind who does LLM reviews and how fast computers are, and he bought an HP laptop to try and get it to run one of the LLMs, a really quite highly spec thing, for about $2,500. It arrived without half the stuff he'd spec'd in it, and then trying to get hold of Hewlett Packard customer service to actually get them to replace parts in it. It was an absolute nightmare. He was recording the phone calls and interactions with them, and nothing about the whole experience, from the purchase of the thing to its delivery to the quality of the device that he had and how well it ran, impressed me in any way. And that kind of reflects later HP products back when I was still in IT.
I wouldn't disagree. And maybe it actually shows, to be fair to Apple and their operations, that we take quite a lot of this for granted, because how often do we order a phone? It turns up on day of release with the right colour and storage. Whilst it's expensive, Apple do get their distribution largely pretty right.
Yeah, but I think that's the expectation. The Google phone would expect to come to it. I'm sure Samsung are quite good at getting phones in your hands on day one as well.
True.
So Amazon and others, and even Argos, as we talked about last week, have got an ability to get just-in-time delivery right, to get what you ordered in your hand. This is cost of entry, table stakes, as the Americans would say these days. So,
yeah, so it's largely a solved problem, isn't it?
it is. Should we move on and talk about WhatsApp, which isn't a solved problem?
So WhatsApp is now considered in the EU a very large platform, which I'm amazed it wasn't considered a very large platform before, because I think I'm probably the only person that doesn't have WhatsApp in the UK. Obviously, I know we're not in the EU anymore, but we need a sad trombone every time we mention that, I think. But I'm amazed this wasn't already there, because they've already classed Facebook and Instagram as very large platforms. So why now WhatsApp? I don't know. It just seemed odd to me they didn't just class all of it in a oneer.
I'm with you on this, that if you can have iMessage as a very large platform, WhatsApp should absolutely be a very large platform.
Yeah, so basically it means they're going to have tighter controls on targeting and advertising and restrictions on child-targeted ads. So it probably doesn't mean it really anything, and I guess Meta's probably already living by this already, but I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, and as you just said, it's really weird that WhatsApp wasn't, but Facebook and Instagram are. I mean, surely more people use WhatsApp than Facebook and Instagram.
I don't know. Instagram's massive, though, isn't it? I think Facebook is the odd one in there.
Perhaps. Have we got anything else in follow-up?
Nope.
Let's move on and do some news. So first one, bringing us back to large American companies again, is on Amazon. And Amazon has plugged its website directly into Amazon's Buy with Prime.
Adidas. You said Amazon.
I said Amazon. You're quite right. Adidas plugs its website and app into Amazon's Buy with Prime. And this is one of those things where we talk about Facebook and its walled garden and Apple and its walled garden. You're walking into a company and you're giving your brand to them when I see something like this. I mean, I'm sure Adidas will continue to have some web presence. I'm not going to bring up the link. But just sort of putting everything you've got through Amazon is A, restrictive to customers who try not to use Amazon. Hello. And then surely if at some point you fall out with Amazon, because these companies never fall out about anything, and Adidas are quite militant about this kind of stuff anyway, it's going to be difficult to walk away from that kind of thing. It mystifies me that you put all your brand eggs in one basket.
Yeah, I get it. Is this just not a mechanism for paying, though?
I think it's more than that, though, isn't it? I mean, Amazon Pay has been a thing for a while. You've seen that on websites before now. But, it's joining thousands of other customers as direct customer Buy with Prime program. It seems notable score when it comes to brand clout. This is quite a big thing to move a lot of your brand and your IP into Amazon's backyard. I think that's my problem. I think a brand needs to maintain a certain amount of separation. We talked about being able to buy Hyundai cars on Amazon. Hyundai aren't putting their entire retail operation or something like that through Amazon, are they?
No, that's true. That is true. But you're right. It's just more Amazon slowly taking over the world.
It very much is. And I see that as problematic in the same way that all your friends were on Facebook and it's difficult to get out. That it's very sticky, these kinds of walled gardens, aren't they?
Yeah, it's interesting that Adidas are doing it now, I guess. But I mean, they're on fire at the moment. Apparently, they're bigger than Nike at the minute, and they're just sponsoring the Mercedes F1 team after like a decade with Tommy Hilfiger. So they're having their moment in the sun, I think, and maybe this is part of that, and they're trying to remove some friction. So I can kind of see from a reason why they might do it, because it could remove some friction when you're checking out. But if somebody really wants a pair of shoes, they're going to find a way to pay for it, aren't they?
Yeah. Who's Steve Madden?
Have you ever watched The Wolf of Wall Street?
No.
So in The Wolf of Wall Street, they actually have Steve Madden on there as a company they're going to invest in. He's a shoe designer for ladies' shoes, was I believe quite big, late early 2000s. I'm trying to remember when Wolf of Wall Street was set. Maybe it was late 90s, early 2000s. So big shoe designer. Ladies' shoes, I don't know much more other than that it was in The Wolf of Wall Street, so apologies.
Well done for you for knowing anything about it. If you'd said Jimmy Choo, I'd have heard of Jimmy Choo, but there you go.
Snap. But then if you look at the other names in that list, you've got Laura Mercier, don't know who that is. Izod, don't know. Mr. Beast, I do know, because I've just finished watching the Beast games.
Yep, you've talked about him before, and Belkin make, obviously, widgets for...
Belkin's much more up our street.
Yeah, we know about Belkin. We're out of our comfort zone talking about shoes. Should we talk about something that's more in a comfort zone, about European alternatives to things?
Okay, let's give it a go.
So I just thought this was quite interesting. It came across my Mastodon feed about, obviously, as we've talked about, there's a bit of uncertainty in Europe and the UK to a certain extent about how many American companies we use for all of our things. And as you look at this list, we use American companies for a lot of our things. You and I are currently on Apple computers talking to each other through Google. There's quite a few American companies just involved in the basic things that we do here. But again, as I keep scrolling, 1Password, X, Google Chrome, YouTube, LinkedIn, Waze, Google Calendar, I don't use GoDaddy, Microsoft Office, MailChimp, all these things are American companies. And I think this is just an interesting initiative where they've brought together all the potential competitors there are to these products that are based within Europe rather than the United States. And in some categories, there's more than others. But I think this is a really important thing to be doing.
It is cool. It's a cool website. It is amazing, isn't it, how much we rely upon American tech. The one that's jumped out at me, though, from being honest, is 1Password. I didn't think that was American. I don't know why. I thought it was more like a Spotify alternative, if I'm being honest. But obviously it's American.
Well, it's Canadian.
It's Canadian. Okay, well, that's why I like it. It's Canadian. I'm all right with supporting a bit of Canadian tech. But it is amazing, though, how much we rely on American tech. It's just, everything you see there, all those logos are probably ones we interact with on a far too frequent a basis.
Absolutely. And I occasionally, in the same way you go off to Apple and go through the password manager every so often, and I've tried to make that stick. This is one I keep meaning to go and look at, is Bitwarden, which is an entirely open source one that you can host yourself, that apparently will run on your phone and your iPad and your Windows computer and your Linux box and all that kind of stuff. And through a bit of jiggery pokery, you can keep it in sync as well. And it's free because you're hosting it yourself. Now, of course, the dependency is on you to keep it up to date and secure and all the rest of it, not a big company. But as we've seen this week, and we're going to talk about later, big companies may not be able to keep your stuff, A, if they want to, and B, if they're allowed to anyway. So I think this is important that you've got European alternatives, but I'm very glad that they're putting in the open source alternatives within here as well, that should you have the skills to, you should be able to manage yourself. I mean, great. I think Proton or Hypervault or whoever else is in this list are probably good, reputable companies. We should maybe be supporting them rather than the big American alternatives. Certainly, we should be considering.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just as tricky, isn't it, to come off your password client? Like, part of me wants to come off of 1Password again, but it actually does a really good job on the whole.
But how do we know that the other thing isn't doing just as good a job unless we try it occasionally?
Yeah, that's true. It's whether you've got the time to do it, I guess.
Yeah, so this is interesting. It's funny, there's only one alternative to LinkedIn, and it's a German company called presumably Zing or Crossing.
Yeah, that is interesting. LinkedIn is kind of the only one that's so dominant in the corporate social media space, isn't it? Like there isn't really alternatives or an Instagram equivalent or what have you.
But actually, isn't that kind of the point? That we are so locked into these platforms that there isn't really an alternative to something like this, and that's kind of problematic.
Yeah, agreed. But then you end up with accounts on both, I guess, because I don't know. Because you want your presence everywhere. LinkedIn, to be fair, very, very well launched and respected product, even though it's been acquired by Microsoft, which a lot of people forget. But actually came along at the right time. There was no, media platform for corporate interaction, was there?
No, but I think Mastodon is showing us there's potentially a way through federation and everything that even if you are a big American company, you can join into something like that, have your presence, but actually make it possible that somebody has an instance somewhere else that can federate with it. So I wonder if we're at the beginning of... Certainly Europe is going to step back from America with the way that they're acting at the moment. And I think the way American companies are acting at the moment as well. I mean, let's face it, our last 6 weeks, maybe longer, has been talking about terrible things American companies have been doing. So when you're big, you're going to be under the microscope. But it does feel a bit like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Should we move on to HP again?
Let's go back to HP. And we should probably have scheduled these things together, but one was follow-up and one's just... This is amazing to me. So I said before about Alex Zalkind, and his terrible interaction with Hewlett-Packard. Earlier in the week, HP were going to deliberately add 15 minutes waiting times to support calls just to try and put you off to go back and look elsewhere on the web. If anybody has ever had the misfortune to try and work out how to download even something as simple as printer drivers via the Hewlett-Packard website, I'm not surprised you'd get frustrated and pick up the phone. And then to have this thrown at you as well would have been appalling.
Yeah, what a HP move to do that, just to add an artificial 15-minute delay on every call. Oh, why don't you make your self-service better? HP, come on, let's do this properly. And to be fair to them, they've got a mobile app on iOS to update your printer firmware and all that sort of stuff these days. And it is way better than it used to be. But come on, HP, you should be better than this.
And they were. I mean, the Register featured this, and then they walked back on it. They suddenly turned around and said, no, we won't put in an artificial 15 minutes.
But it shouldn't have even been a discussion.
Absolutely agree.
Like, where's your company values and morals? This should have been, no, this is idiotic. This isn't serving our customers right. So, infuriates me even more.
It's enshittification, again, is what it is, isn't it? This is, if you made better products that, for example, updated themselves or, had better fault-finding algorithms with them when you got them, then everything that you'd get to the point where you even need to have a customer pick up the phone is what you need to be looking at. That's the way. Like you say, fair enough, you've got an iOS app. Does it actually properly walk you through the steps to do it? Will it, anybody who's ever suffered a paper jam with an HP printer, working out how to get that out, if you're not even tech savvy, is probably a bit of a problem. Never mind changing a toner, changing an imaging drum, all the other bits and pieces. And then they make computers, and then they've got AI pins that they're trying to flog you, or not trying to flog you at the moment, but might in the future. They're a big faceless corporate overlord who also have software services as well. But all of that is apparent in your interactions with them. And if you've had to pick up the phone to call a company, all you want is a bit of fast and polite service, and it'll make you such a better attitude towards them.
Completely agree. You want people to come back to you because you're a good company to interact with, not because you nickel and dime them over cartridges or you make them wait to phone in. Let's move on. Should we talk about dark mode?
Let's talk about dark mode. Do you use dark mode?
Yeah, I do. So dark mode was a thing. We've got OLED iPhones, and when you use dark mode, it's meant to obviously conserve some battery life, because if you've got an OLED screen, when it shows a black, it's turning off the pixels. So it's thought that dark mode should actually be battery saving for a lot of people. My preferences aren't so much around the battery. I think I prefer it because to me, I don't know if it's psychological, but I feel that there's less glare. So generally on my phone, it's in dark mode all the time. On my iPad though, I do have it in light mode when I'm at work, and then come 6 o'clock at night, it flips into dark mode. And I just thought it was a good way, because I use one device. I thought it was a good way of going, right, you finished work for the day. Now you're going to go into entertainment mode, consumption mode kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm not sure about it. For me, when you're lying in bed at night and you're trying not to wake anybody else who's around you, or you're in the cinema or whatever, you shouldn't be using your phone in the cinema. But when you're in a dark environment, dark mode is quite useful at that point. You are trying to have less brightness, as you say. I think I've never thought of it as a way of saving energy. Some people just like dark mode. They don't want all that light white.
I think that's me. I think I'm very susceptible to really bright lights.
Yeah, I don't have it on all the time, I must say. Mine just automatically flips over about sundown time is what seems to happen, and comes back on, and I'm generally quite happy with that. But I've never thought it's for saving energy, and this piece of research says that it's not saving any energy. So
yeah, but the research though is saying because it's in dark mode, people are cranking up the brightness of their screen to see it. And this is something my son does, and it drives me mad, because you pick up his phone and I can just feel it burning my retinas, because he's got the brightness on full brightness. And I was like, oh, it's just to me it's uncomfortable to use. Now he's 13, he's got much younger eyes, but I just find it really uncomfortable. But I don't know why he does it. I can't seem to get a good answer out of him. So I do understand why this is a thing. I guess people have got dark mode on, maybe they don't know how to change it, and therefore they are cranking up the brightness.
No, I mean, I work with a couple of younger people who always want everything they ever look at to be in dark mode. And if you watch any YouTubers and things like that, the first thing they'll do, no matter what, is flip something into dark mode if it's got it. So it's definitely a phenomena. And my problem has always been, if you're in dark mode and then you come across a website or something that isn't in dark mode, then it burns your eyeballs.
Yeah, it can be quite jarring, can't it?
And I think Windows is particularly bad at doing this, where even the sort of control center windows and things like that, some of them, even if you set your system to dark mode, will still be in light mode. The Mac does a better job of being consistent in its dark mode. You still occasionally come across the bad client, and actually now I'm thinking about it, I think it's Word was the particularly bad client. Used to be when you put everything in dark mode, Word would still have bright white paper on it. They fixed that since.
They have fixed that.
But it's that consistency as well, and I can't speak to Linux. I haven't used Linux in dark mode particularly, but Apple when they eventually got there, were definitely better customers in this, better stewards in this market than Microsoft were. But I think it's almost like an infection with younger people. Everything must be in dark mode all the time, and now it's not saving you energy either.
Yeah, I do think that you lose a bit of the OS when you're in dark mode. It doesn't. The controls don't look as good. I just think the whole interface loses a little bit, and often, and I think it's the problem on iOS, is a lot of the apps all just look the same. I guess that's true of light and dark mode. Everybody's using the same symbols these days. But there you go. Can we move on to something more exciting, because I want to talk about this one?
Right, I'm going to shut up and let you talk about your Eero Wi-Fi 7.
So Amazon do Eero mesh networking. I've got a bunch of this. I've got the 6 line. I've been waiting for the 7 regular line to come. So they announced probably about 18 months ago, top of the line, Eero 7 Max, which is a $600 or pound router that you can buy. And obviously you can buy multiple packs of them. But obviously that's a lot of money. It's the latest tech. And then what they've done this week, and it's for sale on Friday on the 28th, or it'll actually be dispatched, is they've now announced the regular lineup of Wi-Fi 7 routers. And these look great. The Eero technology is really good. It's a company that Amazon bought in. And it always felt like Apple should have bought Eero, because you buy them and you came in a nice box and everything's done through an app on your phone. And they're really well made bits of equipment. And obviously Wi-Fi 7 is the latest Wi-Fi standard. And this is something I've been wanting for a while. So they brought out regular Eero 7, which are the smaller pucks, and they cost about $170 each. And then you've got the Pro ones, which you can see in the picture on the screen, and they're £350 for a single one, or a 3-pack for $700. But it's a lot of money, but these things are awesome, because you put them in, you plug and forget, and your whole house is covered. Obviously, it depends how big your house is. A 3-pack would probably do my house. I actually probably need 4, maybe 5, because I've got one in my shed down here, and I have one on my patio to cover, the outside space, because, in the summer we got people over. But they are just great devices. They look fantastic. And what Amazon have done here is they've actually updated the ports on the back. So they're actually 5 gig ports on the back, which I think is pretty good. I thought they would go 2.5, whereas the Max one's got 10 gig port. But 5 probably is a good place to be, I think. And obviously you're going to want something like this if you're going to buy internet that's faster than 1 gig coming into your house, so that you can then push it around your house and get the maximum out of it. Interesting, I think, with these is where Wi-Fi 7 is so fast these days, you don't have to wire them into each other. It will do wireless between the access points, but obviously you can wire them together, so that, and it's clever enough and it just works it all out. You don't need to put anything into the app. But fantastic. They are expensive, but what you do here is you wait for Amazon to release it, and to be fair to them, they will put them on sale immediately. Whenever there's a spring sale, I'm fairly confident there will be a small discount, and probably a slightly bigger one come Black Friday at the end of the year. So I'm going to keep my eye on these. I'm not buying them at day one. I don't need it today, but yeah, something I would be keen on.
And for people not in the Amazon ecosystem, I'm just going to throw about the thing I have. So I use Ubiquity products, which is a lot more complicated to get up and running with, and probably slightly more expensive initially. But the point is it's also modular, and you can do things with it. So this is Unify's range of wireless Wi-Fi 7 products, ranging from sort of their enterprise thing down to the sort of more consumer-friendly U7 Pro, which is £140. Well, 168 including VAT, but they also have weatherproof ones that you can put outside, and enterprise ones, and all the way back to their earlier sort of Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 5 products as well. These are decent prices. These are really quite impressive routers, which are designed for corporate use as much as anything else, so you can have an awful lot of devices live. The U7 Pro, I currently have U6 Pros lying around. I don't have any Wi-Fi 7 devices. It's part of the problem. None of my devices, my laptops, my iPhone, or anything, are actually Wi-Fi 7 at the other side. So I have no compelling reason to upgrade to 7. But it's in the back of my head at some point. I'm probably going to have to. But contain all the features you've just talked about, really, in the sense that you've got lots of antennas in them. They're MIMO. There's some very clever setup tech that comes with them. They can either be backhauled by running Ethernet, and they are power over Ethernet as well. Is that true of the Eero products? Are they power over Ethernet?
They are not power over Ethernet. So yeah, you do need to plug them in. They are USB-C though, and have been since forever.
I don't need that, but this I can plug into my switch, which is power over Ethernet, and all I need is the Ethernet cable running to the back of it, and it'll light up and off I go. I don't need to mess about with an independent power source for it. It's only 2.5 gig in, but actually 2.5 gigs. You don't need 5 gig internet, but to Ethernet or even over Wi-Fi 7, you're not going to be able to saturate to 5 gigs over the wireless spectrum on that anyway. So 2.5 gig is sufficient for me. 2.5 gig switch at one end, 2.5 gig port on this end, powered over one thing, and I can stick it in the ceiling and off I go. But like I say, I don't have any Wi-Fi 7 devices. Do you?
Whilst you were talking, that's why I was marginally distracted. I just went to look at the iPhone. So I thought, surely my iPhone 15 Pro, obviously it's 18 months old, but no, it's Wi-Fi 6E. And then the new, the 16 Pros, they are Wi-Fi 7. So it will come slowly, I guess. But probably like you, I don't have Wi-Fi 7, but I'd rather buy, if I'm going to spend some money, I'd rather get the future standard. But you know what? I've got these Eero 6 Pros. I'm not in a rush to change them. I think I've got about 5 of them, so it would be quite a costly exercise if I did want to change them.
Yeah, I mean, that is the consideration, isn't it? It's the balance between, is it worth spending the money upgrading all your infrastructure for a fairly modest speed increase? I mean, what do you want the Wi-Fi 7 for? Faster internet or faster intranet so you can shunt stuff around your house quicker? The chances are it's shunting around your house fast enough already.
Yeah, for me it'd be a bit of both, I think, because I've only got gigabit between all my Eeros, so I need to update these so I get faster, and I've got some switches to update. I just like the product. I think they're great, and I don't have to do anything with them, and they self-update. I was just checking our Mac Minis because we both got Mac Mini. That is also Wi-Fi 6E. So, Rod, you are quite correct. We don't have any Wi-Fi 7 products. I thought we did, and that's my mistake.
No, but fair play. They've updated the routers, and they should do that. A network manufacturer should update your routers to the latest standards, because the consumer tech will come, and eventually we'll all have Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 8, Wi-Fi 9 down the line in our pockets. So it's good that the infrastructure is there. It's good that the price actually are quite similar if you look at a company like Unify and that the Eero products.
Eero have maintained the pricing. They brought new products in, kind of Apple style, and the pricing hasn't gone up, which I think is good. They've always been quite expensive, though.
Yeah, and I don't mind that if you get what you pay for, if you get a quality product which you're happy with. And I've recommended Eero products to other people because they're simple to put in. I wouldn't recommend Unify products to everybody because the startup costs for it are actually slightly more expensive, because what you need to begin with is a cloud gateway. So you need sort of a center to put your networking through. And I'd recommend something like, if I can find it as I frantically look around, something like the Cloud Gateway Max here to actually get you up and running, which will serve as your network command center. It does your DHCP, it does your DNS, it will talk to all the devices. This has 4 Ethernet ports in the back. I think they're 2.5 gig ones that have power over Ethernet with them, so you can power a couple of these access points. It actually has a little NVMe drive inside it as well, so you can record from your security cameras as well. And this Cloud Gateway Max has replaced, which is what I've got, which is a Dream Machine Pro, which is this thing here, which is the center of mine. So you can see actually in real terms, unless you need all these extra network ports on here, the prices have come down in real terms over time for Unify equipment.
Yeah, I keep giving Unify side eye, but my concern is it requires more effort than I want to put into it.
Once it's up and running, it's flawless, and the control you have over them and the sort of interactions you can have with them, and they've got all the cool stuff as well in terms of iOS apps and all the rest of it. They've got a cool VR one, so you can find your Switch in augmented reality if you want as well. But anyway, we've probably spent too long talking about this. Should we talk about prices going up on laptops?
Go on then, Acer then, first up.
So this is a consequence of Donald Trump increasing tariffs within the United States. Your laptops are probably going to go up 20% in the United States. They'll probably go up for the rest of us around the world as well, because that's the way these things work. If a manufacturer has an opportunity to charge more money, they will. Acer are the first to blink, and they have increased the prices of their laptops. So good luck out there. It's going to be tricky.
Yes. Oh, it's not a shock, is it? I think if you'd have said 6 months ago this was going to happen, it would be a shock, but I think we've all sadly got used to it.
We have. There's not a lot to be said about it other than if you were thinking about buying a laptop, now might be the time to do it.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And obviously Apple have got some new ones coming this spring, we think, new Airs, so it'd be interesting to see how they're going to be priced.
I think they'll absorb the cost in the first flush of this.
Yeah, quite possibly. It'll be interesting to see.
They certainly have more margin than other companies.
Yeah, they've got a bit more to play with.
Let's not talk about RAM or hard drive upgrading prices, eh?
No.
Should we talk about a rather cool-looking smartphone now?
So Huawei
Huawei.
Huawei. I never know how to say that name, but they've got a triple fold, and it's the triple fold Mate XT. Not loving the name, but Apple aren't doing names any better. So they've unveiled the Mate XT last year, and I guess it's actually coming out now. So it's got this triple hinge. It's like a Z, which sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting device. It's quite expensive. It's £2,500, I think. I'm scrolling with the price.
£2,500 in English money, British money.
And the fact that when it's folded into three, it's barely thicker than an iPhone 15, 16 now blows my mind. I mean, that is some impressive technology.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because they're doing this. Apple have done nothing in the foldables. And I find that really bizarre because I know Apple's normally a bit slower to market, but we're hearing mutterings, but there's nothing coming out for years yet. So it's strange, isn't it? But what a piece of engineering. I mean, this looks amazing.
It absolutely does. The problem with the Huawei device, of course, is that you can't have Google stuff on them. It's all Huawei's internal operating system, and lots of companies have chucked Huawei out. Like America was ripping all Huawei stuff out of their networking cabinets. We are doing the same in the UK. So there's a problem with it, but I think if you want the absolute cutting edge of smartphones and it's really important for you, then this is definitely something you should maybe be looking at.
Yeah, it does look awesome, but I don't know. Like I say, I'm just disappointed. I think Apple's not got there. A friend of mine's got some of the folds. They do look cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we end up this year.
I mean, I won't give it an awful lot of time. Marquez's review of the Oppo N, I forget what it is. It's one of the Oppo devices anyway, which is a dual screen device. It's worth spending 10 minutes looking at this because it's really impressive what they're talking about. When he gets to the point of comparing the thinness of the thing, can you see the size of the USB-C port? They've had to make a special USB-C port because the phone is almost thinner than the port, which is just incredible.
It is a school, and that looks a great little device. Like, it actually looks small, but yet you can fold it out, be sat on the train, and it's probably quite a joy to use.
Exactly, and the outside screen is now, when these things launched, they had quite restrictive outside screens. There were huge bezels on them. They were really difficult to work with. They wanted you always to open them and use the interior screens. This thing looks incredible, and he shows it later on in the video next to an iPad. And unfolded, it's the same as an iPad mini. And you think, all right, now that's exactly the device you've wanted, Chris, that you keep talking about. I want a phone on the outside, unfold it, iPad, I can get on and do some work. You can have it now.
100%. Give me that. Can I have that, please?
Well, you can rush off and buy one now if you want.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I've got to exit in the Apple ecosystem, which
I think this year you've got to do it. I think you've got to do the Android challenge I did last year and do a month on Android.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Should we talk about one of Elon's companies?
If we must.
We must. A team from SpaceX is being brought in to overhaul the Federal Aviation Authority's air traffic control system. This absolutely gives me the heebies.
Agreed, and I don't like this blurring of government and corporate. I just find this bizarre.
It's wrong for lots of reasons. Now, no disrespect to the people at SpaceX. They're very, very, very clever. You know, if you ever watch any of those rockets landing again and being caught by gantries and landing in sequence and all the rest of it, you know, they've made space travel and rocket launches almost routine, you know, to be absolutely fair to the SpaceX people. At the same time, what do they know about air traffic control?
I just like the way they're turning up on Monday to help them out. Like, what, they're just going to be there for a day and they're going to have it all fixed? Or they're just, I don't know, I just find it really bizarre. They're just turning up fresh-faced and like, right, let's just chuck you in the deep end. We're going to start, turning things off, because Elon did that with Twitter, and he just went and like decommed a data center over one weekend, and you could just see things like that happening, and I feel a little uncomfortable about this.
There's a certain fixation with some of this. I know the media and Hillary Clinton. I mean, you haven't been running against Hillary Clinton for, 8 years now? 12 years now? Something like that? Move on.
Yeah, move on. But it's just, it doesn't feel right. Why we're saving all this money over here, and Elon's doing this off the kindness of his heart with his team? Like, there's got to be some more stuff going on that we're not hearing about.
I mean, the more critical thing is there were almost three very nasty air crashes.
Yeah, it's not been good, is it?
No. So, all right, maybe there is a problem here, but firing all the government workers and then bringing in emergency teams from your blessed companies, I don't think is the way to do this. You've got a more endemic problem. This doesn't make me rush to want to jump on a plane to go to America, I got to say.
I'm not sure there's a lot of reason. I want to go to America, but there's a lot happening at the minute that I am less keen to see.
Yeah, I'm glad I saw Apple a year or two back, and I wouldn't be going this year. Should we talk about Apple stuff? Do you want to tell us about the 18.4 beta?
Yeah, why not? So last night on a Friday, which is odd for Apple, they finally brought out the betas, developer betas for iOS 18.4, macOS, tvOS, HomePods, iPads, watches probably. And I thought, great, we've been waiting for this one. There's been a massive delay in it coming. There's going to be some cool stuff to play with. So I put it on my iPad to try it out, and there's nothing there. I think let's just go with that. So what have they done then? We've got a link here. So they've done priority notifications using Apple Intelligence. Ooh, I'm not so sure about that. They've got Image Playground sketch style. They've now brought to Image Playgrounds. Well, I deleted Image Playground, so that's that one. They've got new Apple Intelligence languages, none of which I can speak. Obviously, this is great, though, for those nations, so that's a thumbs up. Apple News is getting a food section for recipes, which you can kind of see where Apple News is going. You know, I've actually deleted it now. I've tried to wean myself off it, so I've just removed it. And we should probably talk about that one day. I've actually had a cleanse on my phone of notifications and apps, because I spend too much time on my phone like everybody, and actually it's done me really good because I pick up my phone, I look and go, oh, there's nothing on here, and I just put it back in my pocket. They've then brought ambient music, which I do quite like the look of this one. So in Control Center, you can have four little controls, I guess is the right word, and you can have sleep, chill, productivity and well-being. That's quite nice, and it would just play through Apple Music and put those on there, which I think is quite cool.
Do you have to be an Apple Plus subscriber for this?
I believe so.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say.
So, see, that's that. I know, but you think about it. That's a major operating system upgrade that's dependent on a subscription. I'm not sure I like that. That's verging into Microsoft territory.
I don't disagree with that. And obviously, if you remove the Apple Music app, I assume those options aren't there.
I don't know. This is it. It's a beta. I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out. They've brought the mail categorization to the iPad and to macOS, where you can have primary and adverts and all that. I've actually turned all that off because I just found it did a rubbish job. They've improved how they show privacy indication dots. As you can see, it's got like a little black border around it. Apparently it's meant to be better when you've got different backgrounds. Seems odd that they've just brought that now when those dots have been there for quite a while. Siri voices, you can have Australian Siri voice, which, oh, hang on, my Siri's just kicked in, apologies. They've done some changes to Genmoji. So, okay, I've not really used that yet. I've not seen anybody else use it. Apple Maps got preferred language. There's a podcast widget. Cellular control has got a slightly different toggle now. It now shows you how much cellular signal strength you've got. Shortcuts can do stuff with messages. Like, I don't know, we just seem to be scraping the barrel. But the last one that I'm going to come, well, second from last, I think, maybe, is CarPlay. CarPlay will now go icons onto 3 lines, which I must be honest, I quite fancy that, because it does annoy me that the CarPlay icons just look so chunky and you have to have another screen. So that's probably the one update that I'm looking forward to. Default apps, you can now set your translation for default apps. You've got Notification Center. Apparently some animation smoother, improvement. Oh, apparently there is a problem with Wi-Fi calling. So it's just something to note that if you do upgrade to the beta, you may have an issue with that. You've got some Japanese wallet support, some change for MDM. So there's a bit more customization for MDM to do with some of the latest stuff with Apple Intelligence. And then this one's got me though. There's now a Vision Pro app on your iPhone, and I can't believe they haven't done this before. So you can, load content onto your Vision Pro. You can set up guest mode. I'm amazed it's taken this long to do it, because obviously this is what they did when they launched the Apple Watch. There was an app on your phone where you can really do all the work, and then when you pick up your watch, you've already configured it. So I'm surprised they didn't do this beforehand. So that's finally there. And then there's new emoji, and it will probably come out at some point in April. So quite a good all-round update, but no real AI stuff in the mix, which is interesting.
I'm going to finish on the last thing you talked about. New emoji. I'm always amazed about how they pick these things. We're getting this time backs under eyes, fingerprint, leafless tree, root vegetable, harp, shovel, and splatter. I mean, why those ones specifically? Surely there's other things we need more than that.
Given that I don't really use emoji that often, I'm probably the least emoji person you've met. I don't know.
Anyway, I think in general, most of these feel just like bug fixes and little tidying up things to me rather than significant changes to the operating system. I feel like at this time we were promised that Siri would be new, smarter Siri and all this kind of stuff, and all the additional cool Apple Intelligence things would have come. And it seems not to be the case, and at this point I don't think we're going to see them before iOS 19.
Possibly, or there might be an 18.5, I guess. But it's a very... There's some nice little enhancements here, but there's nothing, is there, really, that stand out?
I mean, you and I were talking last night. iOS 18 has been kind of a nothing burger, really. It's just been some bug fixes. They've shoehorned Apple Intelligence into it, but I've switched it off and I'm not missing any part of it. You went through this saying, I've deleted this part and I don't use Genmoji, and it's quite nice to get some Apple News Plus food stuff, but it's come to other languages, great, which doesn't affect us, but I'm glad other people have got the opportunity to try it because it was a tentpole feature of the new iPhones. But it's certainly not been life-changing.
No, I concur with you there. I think the only thing I like about Apple Intelligence is the new animation when you invoke the voice assistant. I just think that's a cool animation, but that's it.
Yeah, that's not really a good enough reason to give you a full point upgrade on your operating system. And back on the old one, I don't care that you just get the old little spinning thing at the bottom. It's still just as stupid as it ever was.
That is the bigger problem. They've rebranded it, and it's still not that intelligent, sadly.
It's not. Should we move on and do some media?
Let's do it. Media.
So this is right up your street. I know you're a bit of a Bond fan. Do you want to tell us about Amazon and its creative control over the Bond franchise?
Yeah, so obviously the Broccoli family owned the rights to James Bond since forever. It was Cubby Broccoli originally, and then his daughter Barbara Broccoli, and then are relinquishing control and giving it all to Amazon, which is slightly controversial, I think, because they've been recorded as saying Amazon have got no idea what they're doing and they're idiots. So interesting that's now happened. I guess there's been some money, and Amazon own MGM Studios, which own the rights to Bond. So this was probably going to happen at some point, but obviously I hope they... Yeah, I wasn't going to read the exact quote out. It was effing idiots. But this is probably going to happen at some point. I just hope they don't pillage their, the brand, the Bond identity for everything it's worth and destroy it, because I think there's a lot of good films. Obviously, some of them were of the time. I like a bit of Bond. I think the Daniel Craig era was very good. It'd be great to see a different Bond, but I'm just worried they might do a bit of a Star Wars thing and oversaturate us with too much content, or make a TV show. I like a movie. So, yeah, I'm curious to see where it ends up, but I hope they won't destroy it.
Yeah, I'm a bit mixed about this. Obviously, I have a lot of time for Bond. Sean Connery is the only true Bond, as of course everyone will agree. I watched Dr. No. Did I have that in the show notes a couple of weeks back? I watched Dr. No again, like in the last couple of weeks. And that film is of its time, but again, I think it really stands up, and it's amazing to me that it's older than me, that film. And still manages to look really good, and Sean Connery looks terrific, and there's some good action set pieces, and. However, there's some definite quality drops in bits of Bond, even in the Connery era. There was the odd terrible film, and some of the films, and I'm looking at Daniel Craig and thinking Quantum of Solace, and I'm looking at Pierce Brosnan and I'm thinking The World Is Not Enough, and I'm thinking there was some the Bond brand has occasionally been amazing, Casino Royale, Dr. No, Goldfinger, and has occasionally been Tomorrow Never Dies. And
Tomorrow Never Dies did have the radio control BMW 7 Series though, on your Nokia smartphone. That was cool. That was my favourite bit of that.
So I had a gadget,
but it was cool.
Yeah, but it's got to be more about the gadgets became part of Bond. But if you go back to like a Dr. No, it wasn't until Goldfinger that the gadgets came into the forefront. Before that, it was a Cold War era, slightly silly bad guy, but spy movie. And I don't think they've really been that in a very long time. And to be fair to Daniel Craig, I think Casino Royale is a great film for lots of reasons. But Quantum of Solace was not, and I don't think Spectre was. And if you sort of really start to pick them apart, there's good moments within all of them.
Yep.
But they don't stand very close scrutiny, and that's fine. And I think Amazon are perfectly capable of putting together a fun movie, in the spirit of Bond, even if not, you know what I mean? They didn't do themselves any favors. Where I'm going, I'm trying to play the devil's advocate for Amazon here.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and you're right. Not all the films have been stellar, and some don't stand up so well. No, there's a lot I remember, especially from my childhood, like the Living Daylights for Timothy Dalton and View to a Kill with Christopher Walken. They've had some quality quality films, good actors, good tracks. But yeah, hopefully they won't I just don't want them to oversaturate it. I think that's my concern, because we live in a world now where brands get oversaturated and milked.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, you've got me on a Bond track now. To be fair, Roger Moore had some good films. I mean, he had some great films. I think The Spy Who Loved Me was great. Moonraker was not.
Man with the Golden Gun, my favourite.
That's your favourite?
Evil villains got islands in the middle of the sea, and you got a car where you put wings on it and it flies, and you've got the barrel roll with Chef Pep. It's just fantastic. That is, Man with the Golden Gun is one of my favourite ones, definitely. And you got Knick Knack.
It's
got Christopher Lee in it.
Lee.
Yeah, like what a film.
I liked On Her Majesty's Secret Service an awful lot. I think one of the best soundtracks of any Bond film. The ski sequences are very good, and it's the only film in which Bond wears a kilt. But it was the Australian Bond what done it.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that. There you go.
Yeah. Should we move on before we lose the plot?
That's very reminiscent on Bond. Yeah, we could.
I'm going to talk about something else I'm very enthusiastic about at the moment, and that's Severance. I watched last night's episode last night. It's now the most popular show on Apple TV, and good, because it's better than Ted Lasso. I'm just going to say it. It's a terrific show, and I absolutely love it. I love the vibe, one of my daughter's words, that it creates. The acting in it is off the charts. It's good scripts, beautifully filmed. It's not got the patchiness that Ted Lasso has. When Ted's high, it's at its highest, but quite often it's definitely not there. This is consistently excellent television, well acted, well scripted, good music, amazing camera work. I'm just such a huge fan of it. And it will disappoint me, because all things ultimately do. But it's absolutely on a high. And the second season, if anything, is stronger than the first. And that's a really rare thing.
It has got an amazing aesthetic, I think. It really sucks you in. I really want to go back and watch season 1 and then 2. And maybe I need to just start getting on with that, because I've been a bit rubbish, but it does look amazing. And actually, I was just in a grocery shop here the other day, and the checkout staff were talking about Severance and how do they watch it, and they'd heard really good things about it. So it does seem to be breaking through for Apple. So maybe this will help draw people onto the platform.
I hope so. It deserves it. I'm going to now mute my mic and let you talk for however long you need to about Formula One.
This will be very brief. So this week was Formula One's big reveal. It's 75 years of F1. They were at the O2. All the teams were there, all the drivers were there, all the principals were there, all the cars were there. And basically they had a stage show with Jack Whitehall hosting it, and they had various bands coming on, and they just had a night of F1 just as a season opener kind of thing. And it was quite cool. They've never done it before, but actually quite enjoyed it. Watched a bit with my son on catch up because I was away that night. But yeah, it was really good. Machine Gun Kelly was, I think you just highlighted. I didn't know who that was. MGK. They did quite a cool track. They had Take That at the end to close the show. It was just quite a cool show. Jack Whitehall, very funny. Some people got booed. But they revealed all the cars, and it's tough to reveal all the cars this year because they all largely look the same as last year. They've all got largely similar sponsorship to last year. The colours were largely the same, so it's quite a tough act. But to be fair to Jack Whitehall presenting it, he opened into that of everything's going to look the same this year. Let's see what we can do to liven it up, kind of thing. So it was just a good show. It's worth watching it. It's available on YouTube, I think. So that's how I caught up with it. So would recommend if anybody's interested in F1, and can't wait for the next circa month or so until we get the first race.
Yeah, I suppose it's a difficult thing to market, isn't it? It's the drama's when they're racing. It's not when they're off the track. Yeah.
And 10 car releases is not the most exciting thing. It looks like every team got a slot, and they each did their own videos and intros and had their guys walking on the stage. But the production quality was really high on it. It did look amazing. Look, MotoGP is owned by the same company, so you got to assume you're getting one of these next year.
They do it in a different way in MotoGP, or at least they have up till now. As you've been talking, I've been trying to scroll through it to show you what MotoGP do, and they kind of do. The teams have a launch date, and then every week you get a new announcement as for what the teams are going to look like this year. We already know who the riders are.
That's what Formula One used to do. That's what I'm saying. You'll probably end up with this too.
Well, that's not great, is it, really?
It was good. Part of me hopes it's just a one-off because it was 75, 75 years of Formula One. It's nice they've marked the event.
All I know is that the bikes are out testing at the moment, and you got to admit, that looks a lot better than a car under a sheet.
I completely agree with you there. And that's normally what we get, but this year they've done something different, and I get why. It's a big year for Formula 1. Obviously, the movie's coming out as well this year.
Yeah. They've obviously backed that, have they, with Apple?
I assume there's something there, and apparently Lewis Hamilton's one of the advisors for it, and yes, so I assume it's got everybody's blessing on that one. Some money will have changed hands at some point.
There's a lot of money there. Should we do some games?
Go on then.
So 2 very short games to talk about. The first one is Monster Train 2 is about to be released. I haven't had a chance to play the demo, unfortunately. Monster Train 2 was a card-building deck-like, roguelike thing in the vein of Slay the Spire and others. It had a different mechanic where it sort of stacked on 3 levels than just 1. It was really good. You can get it on Steam. You can get it on your iPad. You can play it on your iPhone right now. It's part of Apple Games Plus, Apple Arcade, so it won't cost you anything to do it. It's nicely animated, good music. It's worth. Certainly, the first version was very, very good. So I really must get around to checking this out. Monster Train 2.
It definitely looks a game for you more than me, I think. I'll be on Commandos, you'll be playing this.
Yeah, this is good, but it doesn't have the depth for me of Slay the Spire. And Slay the Spire 2 has been announced. We talked about this in this podcast. And I'm happy just to say those words again, because there hasn't been enough Slay the Spire the last couple of months. So this is encouraging. I hope that it's good, and I hope that Slay the Spire 2 is even better.
Fair enough. And as part of my app cull on my phone, I did take 3s off of it because I was just sinking time into it. So I've had a proper cull. But look, a game I'm looking forward to is Forza Horizon 5, which is coming to the PS5. So normally this has been a Microsoft-only sort of property for Windows and for Xbox. But they're going to bring it out on the PS5 this spring. So it's been ported over. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is quite old news. I seem to have missed it. My kids were telling me about it. But I love a car racing game. I think I've done GT7 to death. So if this can fill my car racing gap in my life, I will take it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I've played this, actually, on my Xbox when I had the monthly subscription-y thing. It's fine. I quite like one of the mechanics in Forza, that if you mess up on a corner and you barrel off into the underground,
you can rewind.
You can rewind, which is quite a nice feature, really. I think you get 3 rewinds, or like instant replays, which is quite good. And you can rewind back as far as you want. So if you got the corner slightly wrong and then very wrong, and then you flip the car, this will let you do it. It's got a bit silly. It's not a car racing game that it used to be. It's all about announcers and cool stuff, and there's an open world component to it. You can drive around and take missions in the way that you want to do. I think the coolest period for Forza was when they had a relationship with Top Gear, and you actually had, the Top Gear presenters talking over the top of your racing and all the rest of it. It looks good though, so it might be right.
I'm going to give it a go. If something me and my children can just race together on, I'll be happy with that.
I just want to comment. I keep meaning to say this every time we talk about Gran Turismo. The music in Gran Turismo is the worst in any game of all time ever. The plinkety plonkety jazz style when the windows are loading and when you're coming out waiting for races absolutely infuriates me. I spend all my time when I load it up trying to switch that nonsense off. It's awful.
I wouldn't disagree. I don't think the music's very good, actually, to be fair.
And it used to be in the races, at least, the music was quite good. They picked quite cool Sony-related bands, to
yeah,
we're getting.
It's a bit of a nothingness this time around.
It's dreadful. It's absolutely dreadful. There are some games, and I don't know if Gran Turismo is one, where you could hook up Spotify or Apple Music to them and play your music instead. But I could never be bothered looking for it. But just to say, the music in Gran Turismo 7 is the worst of the whole series, and it's always been bad.
Yeah, I'd agree. I can't defend it. I'm sorry. I will defend their amazing free updates, and the game is awesome, but the music is it's not fantastic.
All right, this is just me getting myself worked up for the next topic. Really, should we do a main show?
Let's do it.
Okay, so part 1. Bit of announcement here in the UK yesterday that Apple was pulling advanced data protection off of UK customers. So the way this has been framed is that if you were to go to turn on advanced data protection today as a UK customer, you just get a thing going, you're not allowed to do this. For those of us that already have it turned on, at some point it will be turned off. Seems to be the be all and the end all of it. Apple aren't saying a lot about it. The Home Office, who are the reason this is happening, because they're instigating the Regulatory Investigatory Powers Act, or the Snoopers Charter, don't comment on this kind of stuff. The long and the short of it is that because there's no back door that the UK government can't get in and make use of, Apple are walking away from this part of the market. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I hate all of this. I think it's come around very quick. it's really annoyed me because I do have this turned on. So Apple Advanced Data Protection just means that basically you need an Apple device to get into your data. It's end-to-end encrypted. People can't hack in. They can't look at your data. I turned this on when it came out. It's caused me no issues, but I think it helps you sleep a little safer knowing that everything is encrypted. It's free. You can also turn off the ability to access stuff through iCloud.com, which I've also done, so that you actually have to have a device. I just think this is a great additional security feature, and the British government here have said, no, we don't want anybody in the UK to have this anymore, and therefore any new subscribers today can't turn it on, and at some point we're going to have to turn it off. I don't know. It just feels like we're going backwards. I know it's really frustrating.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to say about it, really. We've talked before about the problem with backdoors is you understand the argument for terrorism or child sexual abuse material or things like that. Of course you do. At the same time, leaving a corporate backdoor in anything, be it for the good guys, is eventually the bad guys will get access to it as well. And that's your encrypted data for whatever reason. It could be your company's financial secrets. It could be your own, home's financial or documents, or it doesn't matter what it is. You have a right to privacy that the government does not immediately get to walk all over every time that they do. They feel like it. And the breadth of this law, that it would apply to all Apple customers in the world, not just those in the UK, probably left Apple with no choice. Now, I don't think this... Apple are doing probably the best thing they can at this time, but I do understand the argument that some people are putting up that they'll fight tooth and nail for losing revenue in the EU and, scream and have to be dragged out of rooms, whereas this they'll just shut up and walk away from. So they'll take their money more seriously than their customers' privacy. It is part of this. Now, that's not to excuse that this is a massive overreach of governmental power, what the Investigatory Powers Act is trying to do. And I don't suppose they had much of a thing. But Apple have just gone, fine, okay, well, it's not costing us anything in it. We're not going to walk out the country. We're going to still take British people's pounds for our devices and our services and things like that. We'll just drop their security level. So, all right, the law's the law. It's hard to fight the law of the land. We know what they do in China with this kind of stuff. The whole thing's a bit stinky, really. The whole thing, Apple's reaction to it, which I understand, but in the UK government law, which is poor. It's worse than poor. It's actually potentially harmful in some ways for all the good that is sort of the well-intentioned basis of it. And I don't know how I feel about the whole thing, really. I feel that they're compromising our privacy, Apple are, as well as the UK government, for very poor reasons. And, the corporate money-grubbing underlying instinct of it winds me up.
Yeah, it is interesting. Apple have just rolled over with no fuss. And it's just kind of happened. I don't know. I'm really cheesed off with the whole thing. There's been like you say, because it's not money related, they've just done it. And it just does not sit right with me at all. So infuriating. Will other countries do this, do you think?
Yeah, I do.
It's a shame. It's a good feature. It was great when they brought it out. It's really annoyed me.
It's great. Let's face it, I've got nothing terribly secret in my, secure enclaves or anything like that. It's a feature that increases the chance, it lessens the likelihood of me leaking things to get hacked more than anything else. That's the only reason I want it. But I believe people have the right to have encrypted data. They've got things they don't want other family members to see. They've got things they wouldn't want to get out into the world for whatever that may be. It's you have a right to privacy, and this just tramples all over it. And I just feel bad about the whole thing. And what the answer to this is, I don't know. Because like you say, I think if Britain gets away with it, then America will, then every other country in the world will. China don't even let you have this kind of stuff because they've got, the Great Firewall of China. They've got everything that is overseen by what's going on with the Chinese government. And the public just expect to have all their stuff open all the time. I'm sure there's no criminality or corruption associated with that in any way.
None whatsoever. I think you and I are in a similar boat. I've got stuff on my phone that's family photos. I've got my personal email, my finances. I've got nothing really super secret on there. If you saw my phone, I'd be all right with that. But I just don't want it leaked across the entire world. Thank you very much. I think you're right. We'll allowed our own privacy, and Apple does a really good job. As much as we do bash Apple, I think they do a great job of encryption, providing largely secure devices and software. And this is there; it's free, and yet it's now going away.
And the thing is, if this is about criminality and encrypted messaging and all the rest of it, if you're using iCloud, Apple Messages, it's two-factor encrypted. Apple can't see it. So they're not opening a backdoor to that the government services can see. You're using WhatsApp, it's two-factor encrypted. The government services can't see it. So I feel like this is the government chasing something that they're never going to be able to get hold of. What they want is to be able to unlock your phone and get what's on there when they arrest you. That's what they want, and then be able to get into your iCloud account or whatever secure lockers that you're making use of, so they can go through that. It feels like I'm very interested to see what the reaction to this will be by UK citizens, because part of it is how many people in the UK knew advanced data protection was even a thing.
Yeah, and I need to go check my family's devices because most of them might have it turned on. I think I did turn it on for them because why wouldn't I? It's free. It's a good thing. So yeah, it's infuriating.
And I don't know what the resolution of this is. Unless we switch it off, do we lose our iCloud accounts? I don't know. What happens? They can't just unlock it, presumably. We need to go and take a step to do so?
Yeah, so apparently Apple can't turn it off for us, but whether that will change with an OS update, I don't know.
It's a really interesting state of affairs, but it's bad all round. I don't like the UK government law. I don't like Apple's reaction to this. They're bound by the law of the country in which they operate, but generally they find a way to make it work where they keep making the pounds, don't they? And that pisses me off.
But should it not been a bit more a bit more period of gestation before it just happened? That's I think the frustration here. It's just it got leaked 2 weeks ago, and then now it's just happened. It just seems very bizarre.
Very bizarre. Another thing that's probably not bizarre are developers are kind of reacting against Apple as well. So there's been a couple of stories this week, one from Konstantin and one from, I can't remember, is Masakote is the other chap's name. I'll put them both up on so the YouTubers can see them. Just about how fed up they are with the whole process of Apple, how they're giving money to Trump, how they're not really speaking out against the DEI changes, how they're building in a platform that's burning, where the rules can change all the time. And taking developers for granted, and being part of, in Masakote's world, attacking Canada in the sense that they're behind a government that is doing this kind of thing, where they will impose tariffs, they will accuse them all sorts of things. We see this currently with Ukraine and what's going on there with the United States government's approach to that, throwing their weight around in a very sort of bullying way, and not being all right with it. And that's kind of the overall feeling behind this. I know Steve Troughton-Smith has been far more open about how he feels about this, considering he was such a huge Apple fan as well. You see this tide really beginning to turn, I think, with independent developers, not just feeling meh about the platform, but being actively angry about Apple's approach to its markets and its customers and its developers and its approach to making money. And I think this is interesting. This is independent developers saying they're going to stop filing radars. They're not going to install pre-release things and file bug fixes and all the rest of it. Not actively engaging with Apple products, possibly not buying new things, all that kind of stuff. All of which will make no difference whatsoever to Apple. They, for a long time, have been ignoring radars. For a long time, expect normal people to come along and just keep buying their products, because they have up till now. If they lose a few developers, well, it doesn't really matter that much. The big boys are going to stay there. Facebook aren't going away. Your bank isn't going away. It just means you're going to lose nice whimsical apps like SQL or Tapestry or Reader. That's what will ultimately happen, and it worsens the platform. And I think it's awful of Apple, A, to do what they're doing, but B, to ignore what made the platform great. Let's make Apple great again. It's the developers, and it's these small developers that made the platform that you and I loved so much, back in the day.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's very, like you say, it's their stand, but will it actually make a difference to Apple? Possibly not. Can they get more people to do it? What happens if nobody installed iOS 19 and gave no feedback this summer? That's what you want to try and curry favour with. But will that happen? I doubt it, sadly. It is a really frustrating time, I think, where corporations and politics are blended too much. But equally, Apple's stance on developers, even before the recent administration, hasn't exactly been stellar, has it? I think that is problematic.
Yeah. This is not an inspirational post I'm reading from the article. The time has come to realise that Apple as an organisation is actively supporting the authoritarian regime in the USA through their various donations and continued posting of ads and content on the X platform. That's hard to argue with. This is not a case of local bipartisan misunderstanding one could dismiss with a #USPol hashtag. This is a global effort of misinformation and eradication of decades of human rights, economic and environmental progress. As a European citizen, I find it impossible to continue. This is very heartfelt stuff.
No, it is. It is very heartfelt stuff, isn't it? And you can kind of understand it. How many people does it take though to get Apple to acknowledge and change their attitudes? I don't know.
Well, and again, I've said this before. I don't know that Google are any better. I don't know that that any of the large American companies are any better, and that's why one of the reasons I posted all the European things earlier is that there are alternatives. It takes effort to change your devices, your habits, the sites that you go to, the way that you interact with your technology, the software platforms that you use. Some of them you just can't change. You can't corporately one day decide, I hate Microsoft, therefore I'm never using Microsoft Office again. You can, but it's going to harm your business in the short term or harm your workflow in the short term while you learn all the new things. It's really tricky to take these kinds of stands and stick by them. And I respect Konstantin and Masakose for doing this. Interesting times.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we're through it yet. It's going to be... we've got a little bit longer to go.
So that's our sad portion. Do you want to tell us about the cool new thing Apple released this week?
So Apple have brought out the iPhone 16e, which is an interesting name. Normally the SE phone is just been called an SE, and it's completely out of sync with the main line of phones that gets released annually. But they brought out 16e, and I think the phone, on the face of it, looks pretty good. So it looks like any other regular iPhone. It's finally got rid of the home button. It's got a notch on it. It's got the latest chip in it, which is good. It's only got the one camera, as you could see from Rod's thing there, and it basically looks like an iPhone 12. I think is what you should think of it. It looks like an iPhone 12, but it's got the A18 in it, so it looks a good device. What Apple have done though is they've got rid of the iPhone SE, the 14, and the 14 Plus. So it does really tidy up the lineup, which is, I think, good, because they just kept too many devices around, kind of middling in that lower price point. It's only available in one size. It's 6.1 inch screen, so there's no plus variant. I'm hoping that they've called it 16e means maybe it's going to get annually updated in the spring, which would be fantastic, because it's always been really hard to recommend anybody buy the SE because it just seems to just hang around for so long. But it is $599, dollars, so $600 phone, so it's not cheap, and I really wish they would do something sub the £500 mark, I think, because psychologically that's where they need to be. But it's a pretty well spec'd phone, I think, in most respects. What is interesting with this one though is it's got Apple's own cellular modem, the C1, and they've openly said this might not be the fastest cellular modem, but it is the most battery efficient cellular modem. So I've got to imagine if this is version 1, there's going to be more coming. This is probably built upon Intel's cellular modem business that they acquired a few years ago. This makes sense for Apple to do this, I think, have a C1. Apparently they're already working on the C2. So I think this will come into the mainstream iPhones at some point. But yeah, as Rod's got there, this phone has 26 hours of battery life, which is impressive.
Compared to the iPhone 11. I mean, I don't understand what this... There you go, all right, okay.
But 26 hours, apparently it's got the largest battery life of any phone that they've released with a 6.1 inch screen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to spend too long on this, in the sense that, well done, you've tidied the line up a little bit. There's some baffling choices in this device, though. I mean, they've gone with a notch. Okay.
I'm surprised by the notch, because you'd have thought you've got the dynamic island everywhere else.
Yeah, why not just unify the lineup and make your life easier?
Yeah.
They've gone with a binned A18 chip, so it will run Apple Intelligence, but only just. It's got less RAM, less GPU cores. So the reason it's more battery efficient is A, it's got a bigger battery, and B, the chip's able to do less. So it's a compromised device. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them binning the chip for that. I'm not okay with them taking MagSafe out of it. I think that's an absolutely crazy decision.
I completely agree with you there. MagSafe has been in since iPhone 12. I love MagSafe. It's all we use in my house. So I think that to me is the one biggest backward step.
So no MagSafe. No ProRes on the screen, which is not a surprise. It's the cheaper phone, but only having 60 hertz in a phone like this, I think, is harmful. And fundamentally, it's too expensive.
I think that's the problem. They've made some decisions, but it's still just too expensive. I quite like it comes in black and white. I like the look of it, by the way. But it's just too much money.
But it only comes in black and white.
I think it's fine if that's going to be a low-end phone, but make it a low-end price.
But they used to make a plastic iPhone that was their cheap phone that came in many, many colours, and I genuinely don't understand this choice. We talked about this briefly in the week, and for the value for money, if you look at something like an Android Nothing Phone 2, which start at, if I can find the cost of the thing, which I can't, it starts at $399, so it's £200 cheaper for dual cameras, MagSafe, Qi charging. You can do interesting things with the lights on the back. It's got an up-to-date version of Android on it. It's also got the same Gorilla Glass and all the rest of it. I think people will buy it. I mean, this is it. They charge this price because people will pay it. But I think this is too much money for not enough choice in this. And it's too compromised for me. Well done, you've upgraded the processor. But how old was that phone? The only reason this phone really exists is for the USB-C port, so they can continue to sell something at a lower cost in Europe, and I don't think I've got much more to say about that. I am not excited about this phone.
Oh, it's not exciting. I am glad it's tidied up the lineup, but it's probably why they've got rid of the 14, because obviously the 14 was lightning. So it's good they've done it, but it should have been at least £100 cheaper. I think it should have been $499. It should have been the maximum they should have bought this in at.
Why wouldn't you just put your hand in your pocket a little bit more and just get an iPhone 16?
It's a good question. I don't know.
It's so compromised compared to the iPhone 16.
And if you're really budget conscious, you're not buying an iPhone, are you?
No, you're not. You're buying that Nothing phone, or you're buying a Samsung A25, or whatever the current thing of that is, which is also about £300.
Because you can get a lot more phone for the money.
A lot more phone for the money. And that's without going in the Oppos and some of the other Chinese manufacturers that will sell you things even cheaper with higher specs. So I wouldn't say it's made me angry. I think I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
That good father line or parent line. Yes, I would agree with you. I was really hoping there'd be a phone here that when my parents or my in-laws go, my phone's broken, I need to go buy a new one. Which one should I buy? They should buy this. This is the right phone. It's just at the wrong price, in my opinion, for them.
And the iPhone 15 is still around, and it's $699. And frankly, that's probably a better phone.
Potentially, yeah. Could be a better phone, I guess. But who knows? But I'm curious to know, is this going to be a phone they're going to update every year now they've given it a number? Which, if it is, hopefully it will get better.
That will be the thing.
And it will make more sense.
App of the week?
Do it.
All right, very quick one. It's called Rust Desk. It's a remote desktop app in the way of screen sharing. It's built in Rust. It's really, really fast. It's got nice ability to find other computers and devices around your network. There's an iOS client, there's an iPad client, there's a Linux client, Windows, Mac. Runs the whole gamut of things. It works really, really quickly. It streams really, really well, and it's open source. So if you've got a multi-device life that you're living, or you just want to remote into your Mac from your iPhone when you're out and about, this will let you do it in a very, very reliable way, I've found up till now. There's a couple of ways of doing it. There is a corporate side if you want to buy it, or you can run the open source client. If you run your own little Docker server once, you can actually do all sorts of clever things with supporting your family and friends when they're at the house as well. I've been really impressed with it. I'm just sort of trying it out a little bit for now. Quite impressive. Rust Desk.
Rust Desk. Okay, that looks cool. I've been using screens, I must say. I bought a lifetime thing of screens a while ago, so that's my go-to on my iPad to remote into my Mac Mini, and it's very good. And it works with Tailscale natively, which is even got a Tailscale section in it, which we probably need to revert back to and discuss at some point, as I've been playing with that. But this looks very good.
Nice. Thing of the week.
So I've gone with some headphones this week. I seem to be buying a few headphones this year. So I'm wearing currently my Sonys, which are my fancy headphones, I guess, which I really do like. But I've taken up running lately, and I've been running with these on my treadmill watching films, and they are a little bit big and you get very hot. So I was in a meeting this week and I was chatting to somebody that I work with, and they said, I've got a pair of these Shocks headphones. They're actually really good. So I've gone and bought a pair of these. So I've got them in the blue Eclipse. They're bone conduction ones, which I've never owned before. So they sit just by your ears, which is good for me because putting things in my ears has been problematic. And they've got two charging ports, which I think is interesting. They do a USB-C or a magnetic one, and I've opted for the USB-C one because ironically the colleague who recommended them to me had lost their magnetic charger, and so I didn't want a charger that was just proprietary to it. But I think they're really good. They're a reasonable price. I paid that for them, and it's, like I said, just for me going running. So I'm going to try them out, and maybe for conference calls if they're any good. I didn't buy them for the audio quality. I've bought them just to go for a run so you can hear traffic outside. I didn't want to put anything in my ears, and these are just too big and bulky. So I'm excited to use them.
Why these and not like Beats Active Fit or whatever they're called?
I don't think they do bone conduction. I think they're in the ear ones, and I don't want something going in my ears. So these were good, and I was comfortable with the money and the charging, and just very simple device I can just put on and go. That's what I wanted.
We should probably have a chat about the Beats Fit Pro 2 is what they are, because there's interesting things in them that we haven't talked about, like this heart rate sensors and all the rest of it. But these look like a good set of headphones if you want that kind of thing for your running. Why do you need them not in your ears when you're on a treadmill? I understand being out in traffic and people shouting at you.
I've just got a lot of burst eardrums lately. It's just not very pleasant. So I just don't want to put more things in my ears and aggravate my ears any more than they already are. But when you're in the office, though, you're wearing these big old cans. It does look a bit ridiculous on conference calls. So I might well try these out too.
Fair enough. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
I think so. So if anyone wants to get in contact with us, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Sky, and he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I'm on Mastodon, and I am at _CJP at mastodon.social. Or you can watch on YouTube by going to our website and clicking on the YouTube link, or you can drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.